passingly about a man named Shakespeare. I only read about him passingly, but I remember one thing he wrote that kind of moved me. He put it in the mouth of us who said, to be or not to be. He was in doubt about something. Whether it was nobler in the mind of man to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, moderation, or to take up arms against the sea of troubles and by opposing, end them. And I go for that. If you take up arms, you'll end it. But if you sit around and wait for the one who's in power to make up his mind that he should end it, you'll be waiting a long time. And in my opinion, the young generation of whites, blacks, browns, whatever else there is, you're living at a time of extremism, a time of revolution, a time when there's got to be a change. People in power have misused it, and now there has to be a change, and a better world has to be built, and the only way it's going to be built is with extreme methods. And I, for one, will join in with anyone, don't care what color you are, as long as you want to change this miserable condition that exists on this earth. Thank you.
Welcome to the Gilchrist experience. I imagine you always wonder why I love playing Malcolm. Now this is 1965, maybe a month or two before he passed. But see, Malcolm emerged, he grew with the time, and as he's speaking right there, sounds like he was talking yesterday. That we need to unite as, no matter what color you are, as to fight the system that's oppressing us. All right, welcome to the show, Graham Weatherspoon. And we're going to get into, Graham, as you all know, is an ex-officer, and this recent murder, we can't even call it a chokehold, no, a chokehold murder.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show, Graham.
Hey, Winston.
What's up,
Yeah.
my man?
Oh, here we are again.
Yeah.
It's interesting that for a minor violation,
No violation, really.
selling cigarettes is against the law. You can't sell cigarettes in New York. Cigarettes are smuggled, and it's a matter of just avoiding the taxes. That's what this is about, the tax stamp on the
But
cigarettes.
he was breaking up a fight.
Yeah, immediately prior to this incident, he broke up an altercation on the sidewalk. And the officers coming upon the scene, because they had prior history with him, they perceived that he was doing a transaction for cigarettes, for Lucy's. All right,
For
and
Lucy's?
Lucy's.
This is about Lucy's?
Lucy's, right. And we've all been around town, and the guys selling
Oh,
Newports,
my
Newports,
goodness.
whatever.
What?
So, store owners are not allowed to sell Lucy's. They're not allowed to sell. It's
It
against the
happens
law.
all over the place.
It goes on everywhere, and on the sidewalk. So the fact that it goes on doesn't make it credible. But the fact is this.
Let me ask one question of you. Now, we know for a fact this guy in the past has been caught before. The cops are very familiar with his habits.
Yeah.
So he's been accused and...
He's been
and
arrested before for selling cigarettes on the
Cigarettes.
street.
All right. So he's been arrested before for selling cigarettes, and now you have it that he's caught again, so we might think?
Yeah, they come up on him, and he was saying he wasn't selling any cigarettes. They perceived that he was. One of the problems with policing today is that number one, you have poor supervision.
All right.
When we had, this goes back over a period of time, when we had the layoffs in 75, from 75 to 80, there were no hirings. A lot of officers and supervisors retired after 1980. They had to fill those ranks of supervisors with inexperienced police officers.
Okay.
Sergeants who studied and just studied, went on, became lieutenants and became captains. So although they have rank, it doesn't mean they have any real experience in the job. So you have a problem with supervision being inexperienced, making rank, but they can't lead because they don't know the job. They know the book, but they don't know the job. Herein is this officer, Daniel, I'll get his name in a minute. Although there is prior history, we need to look at the prior history of the officer.
Right.
All right.
Right.
The officer has had 3 suits. 3.
3 suits.
3 suits filed against him
Okay.
in the last 2 years.
2 years.
3
suits.
in the last 2
So
years.
this is going to be the 4th one.
Now, this is going to be the grand mal of them all.
Right.
But the thing is, one case was settled for, I think, $35,000 or $40,000. Now, what happens in these matters is that
Okay.
the department fails to take an officer like this
Right.
off the street.
Okay.
Remember when Baez was murdered?
Right. Chokehold.
In the chokehold in the Bronx. That officer had 14 prior complaints. And his uncle was a full
14?
inspector
I
in
don't
Manhattan
remember that.
North. He had
I don't
14.
remember that.
Yes, he did.
14.
Lavoti had 14 prior
Bodie.
civilian
Yeah, Lavoti. I
complaints.
remember the name. Yeah.
His uncle was an inspector
Right.
who put together
Right.
the street crime unit, We Rule the Night, which killed Amadou Diallo.
Wow.
All right, so we're going to start connecting the threads.
A few bad apples.
A few bad apples make it bad for everybody. Herein, this officer now comes upon Eric Garder, he and his team.
So he
Now,
knows Eric.
He knows him.
Okay.
And as you saw in the video, he said, I'm tired of you guys harassing me. Why you bother me? Don't
Yeah,
bother me. I'm
yeah,
not
yeah.
doing anything. Leave me alone.
Right.
All right. So now, Daniel goes behind Eric and wraps him up
Right.
in the chokehold. They claim that the autopsy, the preliminary results, do not show a cause of death coming from the chokehold.
But he broke his windpipe.
Semantics. I don't know that the windpipe was broken or that the hyoid bone is a small bone at the top of your larynx, and it breaks very easily.
Right.
We would look for that in a strangulation,
Right.
not in choking with the forearm, okay?
But a
Different-
karate chop could do that.
A karate chop can
Yeah,
break that bone.
Yeah.
Now, they're saying that the hold did not contribute to his death. It did contribute. It's
that's
part of a
good.
domino effect, all right?
Isn't that what the chokehold is for?
The chokehold will cut your air off. He
Right.
said he couldn't breathe. He was having trouble breathing. We all heard that on the video. Now, whether or not the hyoid bone is broken, it doesn't mean that this guy did not cause him to suffocate and expire. 2, there's a photograph that was in the Daily News yesterday,
Right.
and it shows this officer with his forearm up against
Right.
his larynx.
Right.
He was saying he could not breathe. So, and I don't know if they can zoom in on this, but in this picture and on the video, they're telling him, put your hand behind your back, put your hand behind your back. When you're laying on your right side, you cannot put your right arm behind your back. And the officer you see here is laying on the ground right behind Eric Garder. And you can see that the officer's forearm is right across his throat.
Okay.
Now, what is really problematic here, tactics-wise,
Right.
a lot of these police officers don't know how to take a person down.
Right.
So it gets into a free-for-all,
Right.
where either the officer gets hurt or the suspects get hurt or everybody gets
Becomes
hurt.
a street fight.
Becomes a street fight.
Yeah.
All holes barred.
Yeah.
But in
And this
terms
guy
of,
is so big, you probably.
well, that's the theory. You know, he's
That's the- yeah.
300 and something pounds.
And he
and-
looked like Superman. to
right,
the
and you
cop.
got 4 cops there. And this guy, this cop here is not 150 pounds.
No,
he's
he's
well
a
over
good-sized
200 pounds
guy.
himself.
He's good
He's much
sized.
bigger than I am.
Yeah.
You know, when I was on patrol, I fought a guy who was 270, 6'5",
Yeah.
6'6", myself.
Yeah.
All right, and I took him down.
Yeah.
I didn't choke him to death. I didn't bust his head open, but we physically got into it, and I took him down. Now, I've had training for that. The police department does not give adequate training for subduing an individual. They don't. Most of these officers out here do not know how to handle themselves in a one-on-one.
Well, this guy looked like he just wanted to hurt somebody.
Well,
That's what it looks
I
like.
want to go back to this officer because
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
we talked about the 3 lawsuits.
Yeah,
That's a red flag.
yeah, right there.
You have 3 complaints, lawsuits filed against 1 cop in 2 years. There's a problem there.
Now, how long ago was this?
This is in the last 2 years.
The last 2 years, recent,
So why is he on patrol?
period.
That's a red flag, all right? He should not, this officer should not have been on patrol.
Okay.
He should have been sitting behind a desk somewhere.
Okay.
It's not about giving him additional training, sensitivity training. No, you hired the wrong person for this job. That's what it is. Another thing.
The last 2 times, did he almost kill somebody?
No, not almost kill somebody, but he hurt people unwarrantedly. He's a
Okay.
cowboy.
Okay.
He's a cowboy. He does not belong on patrol. And beyond that, he doesn't belong in plain clothes. This guy should never be in plain clothes. If
Did
you're
he
going to
sneak
put him
up
out
on
on
you?
patrol, you should put him out on patrol on what we call a fixed post. You are standing in uniform, you're standing on that corner, and you do not move from that corner. It's called a fixer. All right? That's a punishment post. Rain, snow,
okay.
sleet, hail, that's your post. Do not leave that corner. That's what they should have done with this guy. He should never been in a plainclothes unit. 2, he should have been, if in uniform, on a fixer, standing at the same spot for 8 hours.
Were you impressed by Bratton and how he responded to this?
I watched the press conference
Right.
yesterday, and he talked about a myriad of things other than
Okay.
this case. Coincidental? No. And that is, you know, the police commissioner just doesn't call a press conference. It was called because of this incident.
Of course.
But he has over the months, and I've reached out to him, and he did say, as people said, he's trying to reorganize and get his feet on the ground, and that was in January, February.
Okay.
All right, and he is reorganizing, and he is doing a lot of things. But this was a situation that never should have been, and he's going to have to deal with it. I do believe, without a doubt, and he said, we have to wait for the district attorney and the internal affairs working together to handle this in the court of law. That's the first thing. He cannot take actions against this cop other than taking his gun and shield, suspending him. Beyond that, he doesn't have the legal right to do that at this point.
Right.
The real kicker here is going to be the Staten Island district attorney.
Well, we know that's tough territory.
Staten Island is a
The
foreign
Mississippi
country.
of New York, right? Hate to put it that way.
Staten Island is a foreign country. The cops over there, they do what they want,
Yeah.
and they do it how they want to do
Always
it.
been like that.
The blacks,
been like that.
the Africans living in Staten Island, they're in another world over there.
Okay.
I've talked to a number of community groups over the years in Staten Island, and their situation has never gotten better. So here's the problem. We saw how Brown handled Sean Bell. He threw that case.
That's Queens.
Sean Bell, Queens. That
Right.
DA, they were doing nothing in terms of prosecuting those officers.
Okay.
And I had to challenge them during the trial.
All right.
Because they had expert witnesses for the defense, and they never intended to cross-examine them. And these expert witnesses were giving bogus information. So Brown's people were not looking to get a conviction against the officers in the Sean Bell case.
Right.
Johnson in the Bronx, we don't even want to get into him. He just threw the Ramarley Graham case.
Well, he never. Well, yeah.
Through
right.
that case,
And Amadou.
you know, Amadou was
That
lost,
wind up in
winding up all the way upstate.
upstate.
But coming back
Albany.
here now, see, we have a judicial structure. It calls for a grand jury. A grand jury is a secret hearing. Only the people called in for jury duty and selected for that grand jury pool will be in that hearing, and that hearing is conducted by the district attorney of the county. The district attorney during the grand jury will present whatever information he or she wants to present in order to get an indictment,
Okay.
or will fail to present information preventing an indictment. It's called a true bill is when the person is indicted. No
Yeah.
true bill means the jury finds that there isn't enough warranted here for us to take this case to trial. That's what the indictment says. The indictment says this case now should go to trial. So even though the district attorney may get an indictment, it doesn't mean that the district attorney is looking to get a conviction. All right? Let's look at a few things. It's July. It's hot out.
Vacation.
Okay? They don't want people acting up. It's summertime.
Ah.
All right? But this case is going to go deep into the fall.
Okay.
There's not going to be a quick grand jury presentation here.
Let's give the people a minute exposure. To those of you who are not really familiar with this case, we were going into all details of it. To give you some flavor of what's been happening around us, such as the Raleigh Saturday and National Action Network, we're going to run a minute piece here, just give you a little wake-up call of what's happening with this all. And then eventually we're going to go in and actually have you watch what actually happened. All right? So right now we're just going through an analytical thing, what normally happens in cases like this. And, you know, just stay tuned. And right after this, we'll come right back at you. All right? So run a shorter piece, and we'll come back.
The wife of a New York City man who died after a police officer used an apparent chokehold was overcome with grief at a rally in his honor Saturday. 46-year-old Sakou Garder burst into tears and was escorted from a rally for her husband, Eric Garner, at the Reverend Al Sharpton's National Action Network headquarters in Harlem. Garner's death on Friday has prompted an investigation by the Staten Island District Attorney's Office and caused Mayor Bill de Blasio to postpone a vacation while he talks with community leaders. A passerby captured the interaction between Eric Garner and police on video, and the tape shows Garner saying at least 8 times, "I can't breathe," as police appeared to push his head into the ground.
For those of you seeing this for the first time, as you see, Graham showed you in that picture where the officer had him around the throat and was pressing on his windpipe. Now, actually, that's why they call it a chokehold, because it chokes people to death. All right, and you're not legally allowed to do this. Officers that are trained well do not choke people to death. On a minor occasion like this, we've made he's been accused of selling cigarettes. This man lost his life for bogus. Yeah. And the full, where'd you see the full video? And you get the videographer was actually on site, and his house is right next door. And we'll run that later in the program. I'm waiting for Iesha to Sakou to show up. And go ahead, Graham.
Yeah, Officer Pantaleo.
Now you saw this piece here. Now you were talking. We saw the moment 99, the cop with the 99 on his back, forcing his forearm and choking the man to death.
Right. Daniel Pantaleo is the officer.
Pantaleo.
And he lives on Staten Island.
Right.
Commissioner Bratton talked about retraining.
Okay.
This is not about retraining because they were already trained.
Now, what was wrong with that picture we just saw?
What was wrong with it? Okay. And there's wrong on both sides here.
Okay.
Wrong on both sides. And I want.
He should have never said, "Don't touch me, don't touch me." That's asking for trouble.
In the years when we drafted what to do when stopped by the police.
Yeah. You say yes, sir, no, sir, and put your hands out there and with something minor.
You cannot legislate and litigate on the sidewalk of any city with a police officer.
That's right, because they're
whether
crazy.
He's right or whether he's wrong.
Right.
You
exactly.
cannot. All right?
Exactly.
You should comply. Even if you're being violated, comply. Let's keep in mind, unlike many years ago, everything is on video now, as we saw in this case.
So?
A cop can't say you were belligerent, you were loud, you were this, that, and the other.
If you're not.
If they're reaching for you to take you into custody, let them take you.
That's
because the bottom line is you will be taken into custody unless you want to get it to the point where now you're being charged with assault on a police officer, which is a further escalation of the incident.
So what Eric should have done?
Eric should have complied and simply say,
turn around, put his hands,
lock me up, and go. That's what he should have done.
That's what he should have done. All right.
That
was his mistake.
That was his mistake. But that mistake does not warrant It does not warrant the action of the officer doing what he did.
Right.
There were 4 police officers there.
Yeah.
4. Let us not assume that because he's that big,
Yeah.
that he's uncontrollable.
Right.
All right? Another thing, they don't train people properly in taking an individual into custody. My partner,
Right.
my former partner, had approached NYPD years ago with regard to tactics, and they basically told him, oh, we don't need any help from you. Now, my former partner is an instructor in Aikido. Aikido
Okay.
is the martial art form that you see with Steven Seagal in the movies, all right?
Okay.
And he's highly trained in it. I've had training in it as well. And let me tell you something. With Aikido, you can take a 400-pound, 500-pound man, and you can have him doing somersaults
Yeah.
with 3 fingers
Using
of your
his
hand.
weight.
Using 3 fingers.
Yeah,
And I've
using
done
his
these
weight.
techniques
Yeah.
with people. A woman can take a man and have him rotating 360 degrees in the air if you know the techniques
Matter
of
of
Aikido.
balance. That's right. And
It's not about
controlling-
swinging a baton, people throwing punches, breaking their hands because they don't even know how to throw the proper punch, and they wind up shattering bones in their hand.
Right.
You don't have to be an Aikido master to know how to take a person and get a person under your control, cuff them, and get them in the car and go.
Yeah.
So if they want to talk about the training, takedown tactics should not include yoking a guy from the back. Again, and another foolish thing that was done here, they're standing next to a plate glass window.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, that was very stupid of him because they could have wound up going through the window. And then if he had gone
Everybody
through the
getting hurt.
window and the cop was injured, they try and charge you with it.
So resisting arrest.
When it was the cop that initiated the physical act. See, so when an
So
officer is going to take you, comply.
So that's the first mistake.
That's the first
So
mistake.
the defense will say, you can see on the video that he's resisting arrest.
That's what they're
Okay?
going to say.
That's going to be the, come on.
They're going to say it. But that, in and of itself, does not warrant, hey, babe, doesn't warrant a person being summarily put to death on the sidewalk because they are resisting arrest.
Right.
That's cruel and unusual punishment. And what Commissioner Bratton said yesterday, he said he has no doubt the FBI is coming into the case and the U.S. Attorney's Office.
Mm-hmm.
We also heard yesterday that in Newark, the Department of Justice is monitoring the Newark
mine?
Police Department. She's mine.
mine?
Yeah. They're going to monitor Newark. And it's befuddling to me how the Justice Department went upstate to monitor a police department either upstate or in Connecticut last year on the complaints of 15 people, 15 Latino people who said they were being harassed and bothered by the police. They've gone into towns upstate and shut down the police departments. They're going into Newark to monitor Newark. But yet while Ray Kelly was here, the federal government never sought to come in here and deal with the issues going on in this city. We filed paperwork with the Justice Department for Ramarley Graham, for Sean Bell, for Amadou Diallo. On Sean Bell, when we went down to the Justice Department, they said, well, we'll let you know if there's going to be an investigation or if we're even going to do it. Haven't heard from them. All right?
All right. Welcome to the show, Iesha Sakou. She's late, so hopefully we've got the lighting proper. But if she shows, oh, she looks great. Okay, good. I know we always got to worry about that. Oh, my girl, look right. All right. Late, but she's here.
I'm here.
Amen. It's very serious what we've been talking about. Oh, I see you and Graham went over this Monday on your radio show.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
I understand. So I'm just getting to the point that I'm realizing that this guy everybody's got history on him. The cop and the victim. The cop having a history of three prior
Lawsuits.
complaints
Lawsuits,
against
I
him,
Lawsuits.
understand. Yeah.
Lawsuits.
right?
Yeah.
And the victim, he's got the big crime of selling loose cigarettes. man loses his life.
And you know what? It's not a major crime at all.
You know. But why do you resist the cops? Now, we're gonna say what Eric did wrong. All right. Eric says, "Don't touch me! Don't touch me!" He's a big guy, so they patiently waited to, you know, the troops showed up. There are two cops standing there quietly talking to him, and somebody's videotaping the whole thing. I've got the full video from the beginning. So what we're going to do before we even talk any more about it, we're going to run the video, and everybody gets to be an eyewitness, okay? Now, you're standing there videotaping. Now, you know how I'm a videographer, right? So you're standing here from the beginning. Now, we're going to see the actual rundown of what happened, all right? So you're an eyewitness. You're standing there watching this argument. Now, this guy, Eric, supposedly had just broken up a fight. He's standing in his neighborhood. He's been accused in the past of selling cigarettes, all right? So here, let's play the role, and I'm just setting it up for you so you get a good idea of what happens, you know. So when you get in some of these stupid situations where you know you're dead right, you ain't did nothing wrong, don't resist the cops because they're crazy. You understand? I mean, I emphatically understand that. Eric lost his life because he wasn't smart enough to deal with these crazy cops out here. All right? Now let's roll the clip.
My business. The fight break out, stop. Don't say you can run up on me.
That's all right.
The people that's fighting just walk away. Are you serious? I didn't do nothing. Where did I go?
Then before
I have my ID on me. Take me back for what?
Turn it
I
off.
didn't sell anything. I did nothing. We sitting here the whole time. I'm not business. What are you talking about? Who wants to do what? Who does I sell cigarette to? To whom?
not that Richard. There's nothing that.
Easy way or hard way for what? Every time you see me, you want to mess with me. I'm tired of it. It stops today.
This guy right here is forcibly
No, what you grabbing me for?
trying to lock somebody up for right.
Everybody standing here, they told me I didn't do nothing. I did not sell nothing. Because every time you see me, you want to harass me, you want to stop me, trying to sell cigarettes. I'm minding my business, officer. I'm minding my business. Please just leave me alone. I told you the last time, please just leave me alone. Please, don't touch me. Don't touch me.
Hold on.
Please, don't touch me, please. Do not touch me.
Why do they have to?
Put your hand behind your back. I can't breathe. 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 I can't breathe.
Once again, police beating up on people. Back up right here.
Back up and get on that step.
Okay.
Back up.
All he did was break up a fight. And this what happens for breaking up a fight. This crazy.
Everybody back up, back up.
He can't breathe. Look, now I mean, they gave this man a seizure.
Yo, move out the way. Yo.
It's my brother, we live here.
Back up this way. Everybody now back up. It's now going to become a crisis. Back it up. Back it up.
I'm going to my house.
No. This way. Let's go.
Can't go in my
In the house or that way?
All right, I'll go that way.
Pick a choice.
Let me get my
Let's
bike.
Go. You had your chance to get your bike, sir. Staying over there. Right now we have a scene.
It's all right. This has nothing to do with the fight. It has something to do with something else.
That's the one with the green on.
The green. Right, number
As
99.
you can see, now imagine, after all that said, now this guy laid there and nobody tried to help him. All right? This is what's critical in this whole case. He laid there and nobody tried to help him. You can see the guy. Now, why did they call it a chokehold? Because you choke people. You choke people to death. He's saying, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. That's what you do. You got a powerful man. You see the size of this guy in the 99? He must have been 250 himself. So he's sitting there breaking this guy's windpipe, all right, with that chokehold. Now any of us can kill somebody that size if you choke him right.
Right.
That's why it's called a chokehold, because it chokes people. All right? Now, you saw the whole incident there. Now, this guy laid there, and nobody tried to help him. No CPR. Now, this is what's really criminal. All right? Now, this guy's been accused of twice before.
3 times.
3 times.
3 other
I'm sorry.
incidents.
I'd heard 2, but
You know,
now you're doing 3.
When a police officer injures an individual, their responsibility is to provide any necessary first aid.
Right. That's an obligation of a cop?
Right. I've done CPR. We've been trained in it because we're supposed to administer first aid.
Right.
Until EMS.
So if you
or
shoot
whomever can
somebody,
get
you're
there.
supposed to help them?
You shoot. I've been to shootings. A guy I know, I just left him like 3 minutes before he shot a guy. I come back to the scene. He's standing there with his arms crossed and leaning up against the wall. I said, "Are you okay?" He says, "Yeah." I said, "You know, after you shoot somebody, you got to give him some first aid."
Right.
And the guy is bleeding out. He says, "Like, am I going to die?" I said, "I don't know. I'm a doctor." And we commenced doing work on the guy. But here is a case, not unlike the other one. Guy is laying there. He's not conscious. They don't even look to see what's wrong with him. And this is a pattern because we had an officer shot to death up around 126th Street and 3rd Avenue about 3 years ago. Remember, a guy was breaking into his car. He chased him in the rain. He ran up 3rd Avenue. Uniformed guys intercepted him, and he was shot in the back by another officer who was not even interacting with him or the other officers.
He was in civilian clothes.
He was in civilian clothes.
Right.
That officer, and I can't remember his name, he lay face down in the gutter. And it wasn't until EMS got there that they found out that he was a police officer because he was black and they could care less.
Right.
All right? You shoot somebody, you try and administer first aid. Here, they could see. You can see whether or not a person is breathing. You can see that. A guy this big, if you don't see his trunk expanding and contracting, he's not breathing.
So what's the rules when you're choking somebody
care.
and they're saying, "I can't breathe, I can't breathe"?
They don't. This is where we are, because human life is of no value to these people, especially if you're not the right color.
Okay.
They will risk their life to save a dog before they'll save a black person.
Oh man.
They'll save a dog quicker than a black person. Another thing, EMS arrives on the scene. They don't do anything. You see that young lady just reach down, you know, she checks his pulse. Did they go and get an airway to put into his throat? Did they try to do CPR? They did absolutely nothing. I've done CPR on drug addicts, overdose drug addicts in Union Square. You don't have to put your lips on somebody. You take a handkerchief, lay it over their face, and you administer CPR. Here's a man, and trust me, he was not declared. They declare him dead at the hospital. That's not how it really is. The man was dead on the scene.
Is that right?
He was dead on
That's
the
what
scene.
witnesses are saying
They
as well.
don't allow. They don't allow. I called in
He was dead on the scene.
He was definitely dead on the scene.
That's what eyewitnesses are saying, that he was dead on the scene. He was dead when they put him in the gurney and took him away.
That young lady is going to have to lie and say he had a pulse. He had no pulse.
Right.
We know he had no pulse. Then there were no signs of life. If there were signs of life, well, what were you going to do with this guy? Nothing? You didn't put an airway down his throat. You didn't give him oxygen. You didn't try to do CPR. Why? Because he was dead. That's why they didn't try.
They knew he was dead.
They declare a person dead at the hospital because in the past there have been incidents where people were declared dead and they weren't dead. They came back to life an hour later, or even at the hospital they were able, with a defibrillator, to jumpstart them. Okay?
So you think they might have been afraid of a riot if they had announced him dead there?
Oh, absolutely.
You know what this is?
Okay.
This is do the
Absolutely.
right thing in the real life.
Where they take the dead person
Radio Raheem.
and act like they're alive. And there's another movie where they cover up the face. I mean, no, leave the face exposed and take the dead person. I can't remember the movie.
Yeah.
But we have seen this kind of police behavior time and time again. And I just want to kind of back up just a little bit. One, we have to remember that right now, under Bratton, there is a heavy move for strong public relations to make it look like
All right.
there's a better police presence, greater community engagement. Some of the language that I started out using 3 or 4 years ago in regards to the police in the community and looking for better policing in the community, the police department is using that same language, community engagement and other words. And so they're not only using that language, now they're beginning to try to show a greater presence in the community, but it's fake. It's fake because the officers are not really trained to do anything different that better engages the community. That's the first thing. You can't take the same old behavior, cloak it in better community engagement with words and pictures and news stories of community people walking police officers down 125th Street, of which we've seen with Pastor Williams and Jackie Rowe Adams, and no disrespect to them. That's something I would not do. Because we know that it was basically for that reason.
What can Bratton
relations.
do to regain your confidence in them?
It's not just my confidence, it's the community's confidence. And I'll tell you, one of the reasons why I walked into this studio late was because there was a young man who had an interaction with an officer who was at the National Action Network for Services. And he was visibly upset, and he wanted help. And one of the things that, while he was being helped, he was in crisis.
You mean this morning?
A few minutes ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he must have come in about
Somebody
3.
came in a crisis command?
Well, yeah, June was helping him. And so he was very upset, not just upset about his own interaction, he was just very upset about all of the things he's heard. I don't know if you know, but I think it was yesterday on Lexington Avenue at 3:30, I think it was 125th or 116th in Lexington. I got 2 different reports, but I did get the video last night in my inbox on Facebook, where another officer had another young man in a chokehold. So this chokehold, we know, under Commissioner Bratton, is not new. That this has been happening long before now. 10 years ago, what 10 or more years ago, it was Anthony Baez. His mother was at the National Action Network, standing with the family of Eric Garner. So this is not new. What the community has to do is be real clear about their outcry and not sit back and let these things happen. Because what happens is this becomes commonplace, this behavior becomes acceptable, and our young people, our community, not just young people, our community is in fear of having any kind of interaction with the police officers in our community. So all of this about walking off new officers, and they're basically innocent right now, but this is the behavior that they're being introduced to as the behavior of police officers. So if this is what they see, very different than what they learned in the academy, because they're not teaching this in the academy, but this is what they see when they get into the precinct. They hear the braggings about what officers have done to people, so this is what they begin to emulate, not what they've learned in the academy. That goes out the window. All of the good talk, I speak to every graduating class, and I'm really proud that I have an opportunity to talk to them, and I'm grateful for the engagement, and the officers are too. But the thing is all of the talk and all of the good interaction goes out the window when what they actually learn is from seasoned officers who have practiced ugly, bad, non-policied behavior, and that has become the norm for police officers to practice that kind of behavior. It is wrong. I am outraged. The community is outraged, and it will not be tolerated. So I think that we have to, as a whole community, as community leaders as well, and as activists, we have to send a strong message to the commissioner, and I think Reverend Sharpton has said this over and over again, but we have to take action on it. It's not about just talking about it. We have to really, as a community, and not just the leaders, as a community, be about the business of demanding that these officers be held accountable for their behavior. The one who did this with Mr. Garner needs to be tried and convicted. It's all on videotape. Tons of videotape out there. Channel 11 has it. There's folk in the street that have it. He needs to be convicted.
My cousin was calling me from Hawaii.
About it.
Yeah.
People are outraged.
Tracy was calling me about it from Hawaii. All right? This has gone global.
Yeah.
This is just like when Amadou was murdered.
Yeah.
Well, the behavior is global in a certain sense now.
Oh, yeah, that too.
Because the
Police
woman that was
behavior
beat by
around
the
the world
police,
is
right.
problematic.
And especially as it relates
The woman on
to,
the highway?
Right, as it relates to people of color. And
Yeah.
that's what we have to be specific about.
Right.
That the police behavior is consistent across the country as it relates to people of color. They are not taking white folks and throwing them on the ground and punching them in the face and putting them in a chokehold and killing them.
Shooting them
That's
on the
not
subway
happening.
like
Over
in
breaking up
San
a fight
Francisco.
or selling loose cigarettes? Come on.
That's crazy.
Right, it is.
This is really
you
crazy.
got
This
folk,
one is
white folk
crazy.
trafficking guns all up I-95 and
Ooh.
selling guns, and they're not getting that,
Right.
even when they get arrested. And I have
and-
to say that the people that they arrested for guns in the Harlem community were not treated like that man was treated. I witnessed that. They gently walked them out of the building and put them in a truck. But here's a man who intervened in a fight, who said to the police, look, I haven't done anything. And now he's dead because of it. He leaves a small baby behind. The community should be outraged.
You look at
outraged.
how they're treating President Obama. Look how they're treating him because he's black. Anything he does, they want the opposite. He suggested stuff. He suggests stuff that they agreed to. You know, the Affordable Care Act is nothing but something that the it's a Republican idea. Suddenly, a black man comes up and justifies it and gives us something. He does something that no other president has ever done. What, giving us health insurance? When people are dying in hospital, people are going broke about, you know, anything compassionate for the people, something with a little heart in it. And he's just merely trying to cover everybody so you don't go broke, trying to stay healthy. And here they block everything he wants to do. Anything he wants to do. It's because he's black. Don't make any bonds about it. Anybody black knows what it's like to grow up in this society.
Well, I think too that that we as a community, as a people, have to really be accountable to, have to be held accountable for how we represent ourselves, how we define ourselves, how we speak on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, on the news, how we speak to other people, how we name ourselves in the world community. Because over the last 20 years, we have been defining ourselves using the N-word, making that okay. Other cultures define us using that word, and as a result, the thinking that word was created out of is what we are being treated out of right now. Right. And so we see, and we have to be, responsible. What we're seeing is the result of how we have been degrading and defining ourselves. No, is it right that they took the life of Brother Eric Garner? No. No, and no way, nowhere. But I think that we have to be careful about what we create within our own communities in terms of defining ourselves, because other people will look at us that way. If we don't value who we are, we lose our value to the world community.
And as you're saying this, I can only think about how we treat each other with this anti-violence thing that our pet peeve is how we treat one another, how we're killing each other. Absolutely. And we have to take a good look of how difficult it is to be black, period, and how to survive in this madness, and it's not to take your own brother's life, because we're all one community. We used to be. Used to be something a bit more than what it is today.
Across the country, just in the last, I would say, 2-3 weeks, in almost every major city, there's been gun violence.
Chicago.
Young people, Chicago.
40 shootings.
In the year 2014 so far, Chicago has experienced over 190 shootings. In New York, just in the last week, we buried a young man that I was doing some work with, young John, known as Yaya. Was killed at 5:45 in the morning by another young person over a broken jaw beef. The 2 days later, another young man was shot at 5:40 in the afternoon. I mean, like in the early evening, people outside on 144th Street.
It's summertime.
Right. And in Newark, almost every other day, there have been shootings. And so in every major city, Los Angeles, California, Detroit, almost every single major city has young people killing young people, and these young people are people of color, black and Latino people taking each other's lives. And I think that this sends the fact that we are willing to kill each other so easily sends a message again to the world community that our life is not worth much.
Right.
And so what we're seeing is the residue of what has been going out from our community in terms of self-definition, in terms of how we view young black men, in terms of the high rate of incarceration from committing crimes against each other and crimes that just devalue us. So I think that we have a real checkup to do.
So what they see is how we disrespect each other.
Oh, absolutely.
They see that. They've got to be able to see that.
Oh,
they see the way we disrespect each other.
Well, they use the same language towards us when they're policing in our community.
Because you say it all the time. Why can I call you that? You call you say the word and all the time.
If you look back to what Bill Cosby said years ago, and people had a problem with what Bill Cosby was saying, all right? I ain't stupid, and I'm not going to get stupid because the masses want to get stupid.
Right.
This is a chair.
Right.
All right? It's not a cow, it's not a horse, it's a chair. And part of the insanity with the culture is they're trying to flip everything.
Right.
All right? That N-word means exactly what it meant 100 years ago.
Same thing.
No change. It's not a term of endearment.
Never.
All right? And you cannot allow ignorance and stupidity to take the lead, and that's what's happened here. Ignorant people who don't know about the struggle, who aren't involved in the struggle, and are not about putting anything into the struggle today are the ones using that term.
That's right.
And there are a lot of grown folk who are justified.
Well, you got to remember, we have a couple of generations here, because our people got lost after the 60s. They got lost.
Well,
so
after crack. Crack was really the
separation.
separation.
Was just part of it.
But it was the most important separation.
The integration, all right? Because we lost our minds. Now, we need to, people, because we have a point of reference. We're old enough to have that point of reference. Young people don't have that point of reference. They weren't around for Emmett Till. They weren't around for the March on Washington. They weren't around for most of the things that is enabling them to do anything today, and unfortunately a lot of them are doing nothing. So we need to keep those points very evident to them. I was on the subway one day, and some Latino guys are on the train using the N-word. I said, I want you to shut your mouth. They looked at me, I said, use the S word. And I said, if you can't use the S word, open your mouth again, I'm gonna smack you up. Use the S word. That's your word. Use that when you talk. Use that word. Don't use the N word in my presence, all right? Because first of all, you don't have the right to use it. You don't have the freedom of speech. You don't have it, all right? That's an illusion. You don't have the freedom of speech. So shut your face.
You know, in a lot of our schools, and I have to say this, in a lot of our schools, young people are using this language to define each other, and it is being accepted inside our schools. And I think that one of the things that we have to be careful of is what we are allowing through our silence, because we
Who's
are
running
not,
the schools?
Yeah, well, and it's not just that. Parents are not showing up at PTA meetings. Parents are not even showing up in their own household. Right. Let me back it up. Wow. They're not showing up and being present. They may be in the house, but they're in their room with the door closed. Johnny is in his room with the door closed. He's on Facebook using the N-word, on his cell phone using the same language. The parents are in their room doing the same thing on Facebook, on the cell phone, using the same language. If you're in the street, all you have to do is stand and listen to conversations. So again, I want to, I don't want to get too far off the subject of the police and their interaction in our community, but our interaction with each other in our community and interaction inside the schools where our young people are being taught what is proper and improper. Young people are using the N-word. Young people are being arrested on a daily basis. Schools have become the pipeline to the prison. Right. Parents are not showing up to defend their children. And so we've kind of, in a certain sense, when I say we, I'm saying the communal we have let go in our community of those things that we should be holding accountability for. And so we have to really do the due diligence and take back our community, like how you say, Graham, you talk to the young man. We have to speak the right behavior forward. We have to speak what we know is correct. Our silence is agreement that these things that are happening, I don't care how many forums and talk shows and all of that we do, if we are not doing the work in our community, in our homes, in our schools, with our young people, with our community, then we are allowing these things to happen. And I'm just really, saddened by what I'm seeing with families and the young people.
I sit in these situations, and I'm not quite as aggressive as Graham is, and I'm afraid to say something because I don't want. I said something to my wife, had a fit. I said something on a kid throwing some garbage away. And I said something to him, and he muttered "F you" under his breath. Now, in my old days, and my wife wasn't there. But see, there you go. We're fighting amongst each other again, just because we're not respecting one another. So what is a kind of gentle way of doing this?
I'm going to tell you, I do it every day.
Is there a way?
Yeah, because oftentimes, like with the garbage on the street, and I'll say, I'll stop him and I'll say, young man, I said, come on, the garbage can was too far. And then they'll say, no. I said, well, see, this is why they think we don't want this community.
You got the mother touch.
So, I mean, so there's a way without making the young person feel bad. And I don't want us to go off the air without saying what the solutions are, because we've been talking about the problem.
Really?
So one, I'm going to say is that we have to be willing to address our young people in a way that they can receive it. Because beating them up about something is not going to mean that they receive it and use it. But if you approach them in a way that you affect spirit, it will automatically affect the mind to think about the behavior. So sometimes you have to say, come on, wonderful. I know you can pick up that piece. Give them something good. Validate they're good, you have to, because they've been beat up so much. So they expect that you're going to do that, and that their way of dealing with that is just resistance. So if we want the behavior to change, we have to use language that bring them closer to us, that will mean that they will take on the behavior that we expect. And I get so many young people that say to me, they say, you remember me? You were the one that told me when I threw the paper on the floor to pick it up. I don't remember those kids, but they remember because they remember.
You got some crazy kids out here, though. I'll tell you, I'm on a Lexington line, and I'm rushing for a car. I go to it, and this guy's got two girls, one on each arm, and he says to me, hey, we got no room for you, Pops. Go get it. I squeezed in and said, this is New York subway. And this guy sent it, and he wanted to hit me. This young kid wanted to hit me. I'm standing a grown man. This guy's a little guy with two girls on his arm. And I stood there, and I just fumed, because I don't want to say too much. This fool that have hit me, I'd have a fit trying to kill this little kid.
But you have to remember that.
Where did they get this nerve to mess with old people like that?
No, it's not even mess with old people.
What?
It is the nerve to be how they have to be in an environment that did not protect
keep me
them.
out of a subway car?
It's not even that. That situation was created long before you and him got in the subway car. You understand? Because it's a situation for
he doesn't
see you. He has not learned respect. They didn't learn what we learned. And that's why I'm saying that parents are in the home but not in the home. And these parents are second or third generation now, I think, from crack addiction. So either they came from the grandmother was a crack addict, the mother had the same behavior as the crack addict mother, or the one that was left is the one that was left, doing the best, whatever her best thinking is to raise that child that way. I heard a young man, he couldn't have been no more than about 20, and a young woman, they had two children. They were walking across the street, this was yesterday, and the little kid couldn't have been no more than 2 years old, and the light was changing, you know how it changes real fast, and he called the kid an MFer. You know, to hurry up and get across the street. And there's a little kid. He's dragging him across the street. MFA, I told you, come on, because the kid is looking at the ice cream truck.
See, now I can't stand to see that. See, I'd be like, Graham,
if
I'm
no
going to beat
one
up.
raised these kids,
Man.
how can they raise, no one raised these young people, how can they raise their, they're only doing what has been done. And that seems right to them.
It is a mathematical progression, okay? It's what it is. And it will only multiply. It'll only multiply. So it's an illness of spirit, of culture. It's a total breakdown
of spirit,
of a culture, and of a people.
Yeah.
Which will not get better. And I said it before, because they don't have a point of reference. Once we're gone, it'll be much worse. Right. So to whom we can impart, we need to impart. Because everybody's not going to listen anyway, but make the attempt to get it out there. And real quick before we go, people need to serve jury duty, because jury duty is going to determine what comes up with these cases.
Absolutely.
The part of our problem, we have 4 DAs in Manhattan, Bronx, Brooklyn, and Queens in the past history that have failed on these police cases. Staten Island is coming up now, and we'll see how this works. But the indictment is not the key thing. It is whether or not they even push to get a conviction in this matter. An indictment doesn't mean a cotton-picking thing. No. There are cases that Hines handled regarding police officers where there was no indictment because he was protecting the cop. And Ken Thompson is now opening up the can and letting all the worms out. All these people who arrested serving time serving time for crimes they didn't commit, Ken is pulling them out. He's examining, he's reviewing, and I've talked with some of his staff. They're reviewing these cases. No, everybody's not getting out.
Right. Yeah, 30 seconds, Iesha.
Well, I just want to say that, one, we really need to begin to have dialogue in our community with our young people. We also need to be a part of whatever happens in our community. That means precinct council meetings, that the police precincts hold precinct council meetings. Every single precinct has a precinct council meeting. There are some that are so controlled that the commander tries to keep the community from using their voice. But we must demand that voices be heard in that meeting. A commander having all of that control has stuff to hide.
So what can we do to help the Staten Island community? I know that's tough. The Staten Island community. Well, you got National Action Network out there. Cynthia brought this case forward.
I think that the community needs to tune into nationalactionnetwork.net and see what's happening with the National Action Network and what strategies they're going to take to keep light and attention on this issue. I think the other thing is to make sure that you educate your young people, and to be a watchful eye. Keep your cell phone out. Don't be afraid to stand and observe what's going on.
And as you see here every week at the Gilchrist Experience, now you must know that every Saturday, 7:30, channel 34, we watch the National Action Network. And so, again, thank you for coming to the Gilchrist Experience, and the God in me loves the God in you. And stay tuned for more information and more display of how we should get along as a people, as a culture, and start loving one another and start respecting one another. God be with you. Amen. Peace.
Positive place for kids.